My daughter learned PowerPoint when she was in the 3rd grade. But it's really cool. You can hit the letter B when you're doing PowerPoint, and the screen goes blank, and then people actually look at you rather than the screen. So I just wanted to say that I always like to start talks by asking, why should you listen to me? And I am not a relationship guru or one of the great psychotherapists who ever lived or anything like that. I do pay the mortgage by doing psychotherapy. So, I'm a full-time therapist. I also run a nonprofit research institute, and we have some research we're doing as well. But this research that I want to talk to you about really began now 37 years ago. And 37 years ago, I was a professor at Indiana University in Bloomington, and I met a guy who became my long-term collaborator, Robert Levinson, who's a professor at the University of California, Berkeley. Bob and I used to have coffee, and we really liked each other and became friends. And we weren't doing very well with our relationships with women, and so we weren't. We didn't really know what to do. We were giving each other advice, but it was the blind leading the blind. And so we decided to do research on relationships, because we thought maybe if we really did a lot of research on relationships, we could actually have a good relationship someday. Jeff and I talk about our enormous luck of having blundered into relationships with really superb women. And Julie and I started working together about 15 years ago. But before that, Bob and I started working together. Bob was best man at our wedding. And we did really what astronomers did thousands of years ago, just looking at the stars and doing basic observational research on couples. We had no hypotheses, because we brought to this field an enormous ignorance. Right? We're not masters, so we don't have that innate wisdom like Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Phil. We just were stumbling around. So we decided to really do some very basic research and bring in a lot of couples, and we try to have representative samples in the places in which we worked. And we brought them in at the end of the day after they'd been apart for 8 hours, and they talked about how their day went. We videotaped them. And Bob is a psychophysiologist. I eventually learned how to do psychophysiology too. And we synchronized the physiology to the video time code. So we're able to look at how fast their blood was flowing, how fast their heart was beating, how much they were sweating, their hands were sweating. We put a little thing under their chairs called a jiggleometer that measured how much they were moving around. And after they talked about how their day went, and we asked about their conflicts, what they were fighting about, and they tried to work on a conflict and resolve it in 15 minutes. Then they talked about a positive topic. And then we showed them their videotapes, and again we measured their physiology, and we asked them to turn a dial and tell us how they were feeling, from very negative to very positive. And later on we also asked them to try to guess what their partner was feeling, what their partner's dial was. And then we did nothing to help them. We just followed them. So 3 years later, 6 years later, and we're just finishing a 20-year study in the Bay Area. So 20 years ago, we had 2 groups of couples, one group in their 40s and one group in their 60s, representative samples of the same composition as the cities in which we work in terms of ethnic and racial and socioeconomic groups. And we just used the same methods. And we also studied gay and lesbian couples for a dozen years as well. So heterosexual couples, and when I got to the University of Washington 23 years ago, I set up an apartment lab that got called the Love Lab by the BBC. And that was just an apartment where people hung out for 24 hours, kind of like a bed and breakfast setting. Beautiful park and boats going by and picture window. And they could do anything they wanted for 24 hours while the cameras were on. And they wore these Holter monitors that measured 2 channels of electrocardiogram. So it was like a relaxed bed and breakfast setting, except for the 3 cameras bolted to the wall. When they urinated, we took a urine sample to measure stress hormones. We took their blood and looked at the immune system and the endocrine system. And there were people in the other room coding their facial expressions and their emotions. And aside from that, it was very relaxed. And in that study, we had 130 newlyweds. A couple of months after the wedding, we were studying them, the part 11. And then we followed them as many of them got pregnant, and we followed their babies. And I learned how to study babies from my friends who really know about how to study babies. Ed Tronick and Steve Porges and Barry Brazelton. And then we also followed couples across the whole life course, from the newlywed phase through having children, midlife, and old age, retirement, and so on. So we've done these studies throughout the life course. And about 15 years ago, Bob Levinson came and talked at University of Washington, and Neil Jacobson was in the audience, and he said, how can you use this information to help people? And Bob said, in the 20 years that John and I worked together, we're proud to say that we've never helped anybody. It was really when I started working with my wife, who's really a clinical psychologist, even though I got trained at the University of Wisconsin in clinical psychology. I was really destined to do research rather than clinical work. I did clinical work just to get ideas. But Julie and I really started a thing called the Gottman Institute that is designed to train clinicians and offer workshops and therapy for couples. So that's kind of the background of what we did. Now,